walked all the way from middle centre Leeds up to Leeds University, and even though I've emailed them before and they've not replied, I did ask if I could film in there. The young girl said not allowed, but she'll allow me to take photos. I tried to argue that video is just a string of photos put together, but she wouldn't have it. She wouldn't even get a manager. I said, can you get a manager and get, order all in meetings? I thought, smelt a bit of BS, but I wasn't going to argue. I was trying to plead my case. But the thing is, I took photos, so what I'm going to do is I'll put all those photos together and narrate what it says under them on each article, and hopefully make a good video on the Brontes.
Charlotte Bronte, Two Romantic Tales, 15th of April 1829. The Bronte children enjoyed creating complex worlds and stories, capturing them in miniature books. This manuscript contains a romantic tale, which recounts the development of the children's fantasy world of Glasstown, and an adventure in Ireland, one of the few early stories not located in the Brontes' imaginary kingdoms. Charlotte Bronte, characters of the celebrated man of the present time by Captain Tree, 13th to 17th of December 1829. Many of the Bronte siblings' characters were drawn from real life, as well as their imaginary worlds. This book features celebrated men, such as the then Prime Minister, the Duke of Wellington, and his son, Lord Charles Wesley. Alongside fictional characters like young Bronte, Captain Tree was one of the Charlotte's childhood pen names. Charlotte Bronte, Young Men's Magazine, 2nd series, number 5, December 1830. Charlotte wrote this little book of poetry, stories, reviews and advertisements when she was 14. It resembles a Blackwood's magazine, which was read avidly by the Bronte family. This miniature version was intended to be read by the toy soldiers. Charlotte Bronte Visits in Veropolis by Lord Charles Wesley in 2 volumes, 7th to 11th December 1830. Paper was a precious commodity for the Bronte children. These blue paper covers were originally Epsom salts packaging from a chemist in Keighley near Haworth, as can be seen from the inside cover. This miniature manuscript in 2 volumes tells 2 very different stories of visits around the imaginary kingdom of Glasstown. Charlotte Bronte, My Angria and the Angrians by Lord Charles Albert Florian Wesley, 14th of October 1834. By the time she wrote this story, Charlotte had experienced life away from Haworth at Roe Hedge School in Mirfield. It is set in Angria, a new imaginary kingdom. This period of change is reflected in the manuscript itself. It is larger than the miniatures, but remains the familiar minuscule handwriting. Charlotte Bronte, Fireside Tales, or The Return to Zamora, December 1836 to January 1837. Fireside Tales was written over 2 years after My Angria, which is a more assured piece of storytelling. The story begins, "Reader, I'll tell you what, my heart is like to break." This direct address to an opening line will be used much later in the famous first words of the final chapter of Charlotte's novel Jane Eyre. "Reader, I married him." Charlotte Bronte, The Duke of Zamora, May 1838. Charlotte wrote this story during the summer of 1838 when she was recuperating at home following an illness. Changing narrative styles show she had matured as a writer. The imaginary world of Angria gave her the freedom to develop her writing. The Duke of Zamora is the last of the miniature books in the Blavatnik Honresfield Library. Anne Bronte, 10 autograph poems, April 1844 to September 1845. This slim volume contains manuscripts for poems by Anne Bronte, Most were written during an unhappy period she has spent working as a governess. Anne's poetry is often autobiographical. The poem displayed here dwells on the decay of friendship and the absence of all joy and hope in life. Emily Bronte, pencil sketch, 1828. Emily Bronte produced this pencil sketch when she was just 10 years old. The drawing shows a stone mullioned window, typical of those found in local farmhouses and cottages. The small hand protruding through the broken glass is evocative of the ghostly scene in Emily's novel Wuthering Heights. Emily Bronte, Notebook of Poems, 3rd of March 1844 to the 2nd of January 1846. Emily wrote one of the most powerful and popular poems of the 19th century. No Coward Soul Is Mine, seen here. This rare surviving notebook shows the changes she made to several of the lines, alongside a further 30 poems. Charlotte acknowledged her sister's genius in a note. Never was better stuff penned. Charlotte, Emily and Anne Bronte, poems by Currier, Ellis and Acton Bell, London 1846, owned and annotated by Emily Bronte. This is Emily's own copy of the first published work by the Brontes. The sisters used pseudonyms to conceal their identities and genders, and only 2 copies were sold in the first year. The book is open to show Emily's poem Anticipation, written in a notebook with the title How Beautiful the Earth Is Still. Bramwell Bronte, autograph letters to Hartley Coleridge, 10th of April to 27th of June 1840. Bramwell Bronte tried to build a literary career as an adult, having struggled to find success as a portrait painter. He sent letters to various writers and publishers, sharing his work and asking for advice, including these to the poet Hartley Coleridge, son of the famous poet Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Charlotte Bronte, first edition of Jane Eyre, London 1847. Charlotte's first published novel, Jane Eyre, was a commercial success and made its author a literary celebrity almost overnight. Early reviews praised its daring, originality and vigour. This success would prove the foundation of her literary career. Charlotte's father, Patrick, gifted his copy of the first edition to Martha Brown, the Brontes' family servant. Emily and Anne Bronte's first edition of Wuthering Heights and Agnes Grey, London 1847. Emily and Anne had paid the publisher Thomas Newby £50 to publish their manuscripts in July 1847. He delayed publication until he had seen the success of Charlotte's Jane Eyre. This first edition of Wuthering Heights and Agnes Grey was finally published with numerous errors in December 1847. Charlotte Bronte, first edition of Shirley, London 1849. Bramwell, Emily and Anne all died while Charlotte was writing her second novel, Shirley. This first volume of the first edition includes a letter she wrote to the editor. In it, she expressed how writing the book, though emotionally difficult, provided respite from her grief. It took me out of the dark and desolate reality into an unreal but happier region. Charlotte Bronte, autograph letter to her editor W.S. Williams, 10th of November 1847. Charlotte wrote this letter, signed C. Bell, to her editor shortly after the publication of Jane Eyre. In it, she discusses the controversy surrounding the true identities of Currier, Ellis and Acton Bell, the gender-neutral pen names used by Charlotte, Emily and Anne. Elizabeth Gaskell, autograph letters, 26 and 29 September 1853. The novelist Emily Gaskell wrote these letters after visiting Charlotte at the parsonage. They vividly describe insanitary conditions in Haworth, including problems with water supply and the foul-smelling churchyard. Gaskell later wrote the first biography of Charlotte, which defined the Brontes myth, the wilderness in the countryside, the strangeness of the family, and their bleak surroundings. Shawl, handkerchief and bow, believed to have belonged to the Bronte family, 1840s to 1850s. Elizabeth Gaskell's biography of Charlotte generated a huge amount of interest in the lives of the Brontes, and created a market of objects associated with the famous novelists. Accessories such as these came to be valued as personal relics. They were generally easier to find and less expensive to acquire than manuscripts. Thomas James Wise, autograph letter to William Law, 30th of March 1897. All the items in this exhibition were part of William Law's impressive library. He was a passionate collector of Bronte memorabilia. This letter from the book dealer, Thomas J. Wise, compares different manuscripts of Emily's poems. It shows the level of interest Law took in the manuscripts he sought to acquire for his collection. If you'd like to see this exhibition of Bronte's memorabilia, it's at the Treasures of the Brotherton Gallery in Leeds, up until the 28th of October.